Hi, this is Phil Shapiro in Tacoma Park. I've been reading a really interesting new book, Sanctuary and Asylum, A Social and Political History by Linda Rabin. Linda is a Tacoma Park resident, and she is an associate research professor of anthropology at the University of Maryland. So this is a current book. It's 2016, so topical and so important to read. It looks like it's very well researched, and it's beautifully written. I got a lot in reading this book. So let me start off. I grabbed a few quotes that might be interesting. Here's the purpose of the book from the introduction. I decided to write this new book as I watched asylum policies and movements change, sometimes radically, after the publication of Give Refuge to the Stranger in early 2011. So Linda Rabin's written a bunch of books, and that's one of her earlier ones. Governments that had acknowledged the futility of punitive, inhumane policies during the first decade of the 21st century reverted to the old failed policies as political pressure escalated. In response, sanctuary movements, which had been quiescent for years, suddenly revived. These developments made parts of the previous book outdated, but they also confirmed my conviction that although asylum is under threat, sanctuary will always be with us. I felt compelled to bring the story up to date in Sanctuary and Asylum and to keep encouraging people to work on this issue. Over more than a decade, my research has given me many opportunities to meet and learn from sanctuary givers and seekers. I hope their stories are as inspiring and heartening to readers as they have been to me, and I hope they move you to take actions, however modest, to protect and advance the ancient, noble institutions of sanctuary, a vital part of our human heritage. So Linda Rabin goes all the way back in history to find examples of human beings giving assistance to each other in this context of sanctuary and asylum. And she looks at different religious traditions, both Western and non-Western. It's very interesting Native American traditions, Bedouin traditions of giving assistance and refuge to the stranger. One part I like about the book is the definition of terms, so that you become more informed about these words that we use. So here's a little quote I have on the origins of the word asylum. The word asylum comes from the ancient Greek asylos, inviolable. 3,000 years ago, the goddess Diana's sanctuary at Ephesus was famous throughout Greece as a place of asylum, and people also sought refuge in groves, temples, and other places associated with the gods. And then here, on another page of the book, she explains about this principle of non-refoulement. It's French terminology, and it's in between World War I and World War II. The new League of Nations established the so-called Nansen Office after World War I to help refugees overcome the obstacles that governments placed in their way. Its most notable achievement was introducing the principle of non-refoulement to international law. Non-refoulement is a prohibition on sending asylum seekers back to a country where they might be persecuted, tortured, or killed. So the book also covers topics that you might expect, with the Underground Railroad and the sheltering of Jews in World War II, done by courageous people because the Nazis would typically kill anybody sheltering Jews in World War II. And talks about the traditions in the Quaker tradition of refuge and asylum, and altogether a very interesting book that goes through the history of this whole topic, and including a description of some stories of the current day of refugees and asylum seekers who have gotten tangled up in bureaucratic mazes, having done no crime, finding themselves in a very difficult situation. So lots of food for thought in this book. The book is very well researched. I counted, I think, 10 pages of footnotes and 16 pages of references. So this was a labor of love in the writing of the book. Ask your public library to buy a copy. Sanctuary and Asylum. This is an interesting and important book.